Good morning. It's 11 a.m., so we're going to get underway. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of our 3DCS 8.2 What's New series. This is the last webinar of DCS's webinar series for 2025. We do hope you'll be joining us in 2026 as we kick off the year with our next series. We'll be announcing the topics soon. If there are any topics you'd like to see in next year's webinar series, make sure you spend a moment to fill out the webinar survey at the end once the webinar closes. It's only 2 questions, one of which is, did we miss any of your questions? And the second one is, are there any topics you would like to see in our next webinar series? Great way for you to influence what kind of topics we cover, especially if there's a particular one you are interested in seeing. All right. My name is Ben Reese, DCS Marketing. I'll be your moderator today. A couple quick announcements before we get underway. Today, our team will be demonstrating 3DCS Variation Analyst integrated into CATIA V5. As many of you are aware, 3DCS is integrated into a number of different CAD platforms, as well as being available as a standalone solution, our multi-CAD platform. All of today's features are available across all of these different platforms. We just have to choose one to showcase. Throughout today's presentation, please enter your questions into the question pane. I have Dave Johnson, the 3DCS project and I believe project manager. Dave, I'll double check to make sure I get his title correct.
You got the product manager, you're right.
Product manager. Okay, thanks, Dave. We've got Dave Johnson here on hand to help with questions throughout the event and to tag some for the Q&A session we'll have at the end for our 2 presenters. As I mentioned, we have a very short survey. Once the webinar closes down, only 2 questions. Please take a moment to provide us your feedback. It's very important to us. We do use it for setting our webinar series. If possible, use your computer speakers to listen today. You'll get the best audio quality that way. If you're having problems hearing today's event, please switch from audio over to the phone call and then back to computer audio. That will actually reconnect you to the audio server, essentially turning it off and turning it back on again, which will resolve a number of issues. If you're still having any problems, please use the chat to chat me directly, or push the raise hand button and I will chat you in order to help solve your issues. Today's session is being recorded and a recording of the session will be sent to you tomorrow along with the previous sessions. In addition, I'll be putting some direct links to the part 1 version directly into the chat pane as soon as we pass the presentation off. I'll provide you 2 links today, which will be the YouTube on-demand link as well as the GoToWebinar recorded link if you're not able to access YouTube at your location. All right, today we have 2 presenters, Maria Harangas, Senior Application Engineer, and Vishnu Priya Vijaykumar are one of our technical support specialists. Both Maria and Priya have been with the company DCS for a number of years and have been involved in both projects, customer support, development, testing, as well as doing other webinars and presentations at our user conferences. So they have a great deal of experience with the software, and I feel that we're lucky to have them with us today. Thank you so much for joining us, Maria. Thank you, Priya. I believe, Maria, you'll be starting us out today. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right, at this time then, I'll be passing the presentation over to you.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it looks wonderful. Thank you, Maria.
All right. Good morning. I'm going to talk to you today about several enhancements for Compliant Modeler. They're enhancements required by our customers. So yes, we listen. Before I get into these enhancements, I would like to talk a little bit about Compliant Modeler in general. So the way I go about it, let's say you don't know anything about it, you can research us. And I found here an explanation by Copilot. It tells you a little bit about Compliant Modeler. and then it can take you to our own page where it explains a little bit of it. What is it for? What can you do with it? So one big difference between the compliant and our usual models is that it treats the parts as flexible. In general, the 3DCS models treat parts as rigid. This one, it adds flexibility through adding the FEA information in a form of mesh files that come from Abacus, Nastran, OptiStruct, or ANSYS. And then we create matrices like stiffness matrix to deal with the deformation, mass matrix to deal with gravity, or load matrix to deal with thermal change. And here on this page, you can see a little bit of more explanation. You would use Compliant Modeler by adding it to an existing rigid model, so you can build on an already existing model. It can help you determine a variation from gravity, clamping, heat change, or over-constraining the part. You can apply forces to your model, and you can validate against FEA software. For example, over-constrained assemblies. It will let you put multiple clamps, multiple joining locations, and see what happens with your assembly. It can help you determine the clamping order or the riveting and welding order for your assembly to reduce the variation and deformation. It can let you apply concentrated forces, and again, welding or bolting at multiple locations. And also you can apply gravity, you can apply thermal moves to change the part temperature, and you can observe the effects of the spring back. So this is a little bit of introduction about Compliant, where you can find it online. Going back to our points here, the first one that first item that I'm going to talk about is the pre-check linking distance. So people that use Compliant Modeler know that in Compliant Modeler we use points to link with mesh nodes. For that, you will need a little bit of information, and this this function was added to StiffGen to make that step much easier. So before you create any stiffness matrix, any mass matrix, before you do anything with your compliant model, you want to make sure that your mesh nodes are falling onto your part. To do that, you can use this function called pre-check linking distance, which is part of the StiffGen, which is part of the Compliant Modeler add-on. And the steps to do that: first, you add the part that you're interested in. Let's pick the top. And by the way, I'm using the tutorial, which is available for everybody that's using our Compliant Modeler software. So I've added the part, then I'm going to pick the mesh file for that part. This would be a file that comes from an FEA software, unchanged. I did not run it through StiffGen yet. Another piece of information that we need is the units that were used when the mesh file was created. For this file, we used meter, Newton, and kilogram. And once you picked these units, you can see that the pre-check linking distance button is available. So you can click it. And once you click it, you get this dialog. And in here, if you look at on the left column, you have the modeling points, which would be the points in the part. And the second column would be the nodes that would be the closest to our points. And the third column is the distance. if you want to see all of them, you can scroll down, or you can look at the summary page, and it gives you all the points, all the nodes that are the closest and their distances. And at the bottom of this page, it's a line that tells you 79 points, 79 nodes, so one-on-one selection. That's great. That's what we wanted. So once you click those, what you can do with this distance, you can visualize it also. So let's say 0.7, it's on that corner right there. I can say, show me, for example, points that are further than 0.05 meters from my nodes. I don't have anything, so nothing is that far. How about 0.005? I have two nodes. So one is the B datum, which is pretty much my point. It's in the center of the hole, because that's where we want to put it. It would be the center of this hole. And the node, it's on the edge of the hole because the mesh created doesn't mesh through the hole, meshes around it. So that's the largest distance that we find in this model between the nodes and the points in the 3DCS model. This is acceptable. The reason for this check is if you have large distances between your nodes and your points, then your deformation may be inaccurate because it may create a lever effect based on the distance between them. When your node translates and specifically rotates due to all kinds of loads you put on the parts, the point will swing around due to the node rotation. The larger the distance, the more it will swing, so your deformation will be inaccurate. So this is, and yeah, one more little thing. Now the summary just shows us all those points, so it updates based on what you have shown in the dialog. So this is the first function, and it didn't exist before. Now users can take advantage of it before creating a mesh and stiffness matrix and then checking the linking distance with our linking wizard. Another function that we added, just again for ease of use, is create 3DCS points. So you start from the same scenario. You loaded a part, you pick the mesh, you picked the units for the mesh, and then we have this other button called create 3DCS points. When you click it, it opens this dialog for us, which shows in this case all the nodes in the mesh, every single node. And then you can have a choice to say, for example, I already have it selected here, but you can select certain nodes based on a distance. Actually, this is a coordinate, an actual coordinate in X direction, for example. If I say, just give me the nodes that are at this coordinate, what it's going to do, if I say create 3DCS points, do you want 95 points? Okay, let's do them. And then once you did those points, I'm going to show my points, and it puts the points at every node that was available at that coordinate of 0.5. All right, let's say I'm not interested in those points, so I can pretty much delete them if I want. And let's say I want a different criteria, or I just want to look at all of the points. So let's delete these to clear up the screen. Coming back to the dialog, I'm not going to use that criteria. I'm going to right click and I'm going to uncheck everything. And there it goes. I still want to see where my nodes are, so I can click on any of these top of the columns and it shows us all the nodes that would be on the mesh, where they are on the part, and we show coordinates for the first 50 nodes. Shows you where they are. And since I see some of my first nodes are on the corners, I'm going to say, how about I just generate 1 through 7? So I'm going to create these points. Yes, okay, yeah. So it created 7 points. You see their coordinate points in a part, and you can see them here on the CAD. So this would be the way you can use right now this dialog. We will have in the future a way of automatically creating these points. Basically, let's say I want to create 10 points. What the software is going to do is going to split the part into 10 sectors and put a point in each of those sectors. This is still under development, so it's coming soon. So I'm not going to apply that. Of course, when you click on one of these nodes, it'll show it to you where it is on the CAD. But this is the idea of creating points. You load the mesh, and you can create points on the part, and they will be assigned to the part in a tree and on the CAD. Going back to the PowerPoint for a second here, and by the way, this explains a little bit the first 2 functions, where the pre-checking linking distances and the creating a 3DCS points. So I'm going to go to the 3rd item on the list, which was also required by our customers. So generate basically populate the load FEA data move with mesh, stiffness matrix, and mass matrix that were created with StiffGen for multiple parts. Up to this point, these files were loaded manually. So what we added to the software, let's say we decided that we want points, mesh files and stiffness files for both of the parts. They're created for us already, and they're set in this folder. Once they're created, you can go and say, create a load FEA data move in, let's say, this assembly. And then all you need to do is this couple of steps. First, you pick the parts that will have FEA information. So I'm picking both parts. And then instead of picking each of these files, I'm going to go to FEA files directory, and I'll pick that folder, just that. And then it populates for me the stiffness file, the mesh file, and the mass matrix for both of the parts. As long as you keep the files with the names that were generated with, you put them in a folder, you just go to that folder, and you have a load FEA data move in a couple of clicks. Let's see what else was there. The next item that I want to talk to you about is, yes, this was also required by our customers. So the files that I just loaded are generated with StiffGen, and you can generate a matrix, stiffness matrix, mass matrix, and thermal load in case you have a thermal matrix created, thermal move created. The workflow, it was to generate one at a time. The request was to let users generate multiple of these files for multiple parts at the same time. So what happens is you pick both files, for example, both parts here, and you say generate, and you can see it opens two windows to run. So let me show you this on the software. Now I don't have the solver for Abacus connected because I'm not connected to my server, but I can show you how the process works. So let's say I'm opening StiffGen. I'm adding my both parts, upper and lower, the base. So I have two parts. I'm going to add the mesh file for the upper. I'm going to add the mesh file for the base. So if I double check, the one has the upper, one has the base. I'm going to add the units just like before to unlock these buttons. See, when I add the mesh, it unlocks the mesh matrix. So let's say I want to generate the mesh matrix and the stiffness matrix. I'm going to call Abacus Solver, and it works for all the other softwares, not just for Abacus. And the key here is to pick both of these files and say generate. And if you can see, it opens two windows for me. Now it's going to stop right here because I don't have the license, but that's the idea. It's going to run both of them and create stiffness and mesh matrix and an updated mesh file for all of these. And I think that's the end of my presentation. That's right. So Ben, if you wanna.
Yeah, I believe we have some polls for this. Yes, we do. So our polls today are going to be a little different than normal. What we're looking for is some of your feedback for our development team on your opinions on whether some of these tools are going to be helpful for you and some of the options that might be available. So please take a moment, and I will also show you the results of the poll. If you're having any troubles interacting with the poll, try to take it out of full screen mode. Sometimes when it's in full screen mode, it won't allow you to interact with the polling results. We're just going to take a few seconds for this as it is important to the team. In addition, in tomorrow's follow-up email, I will include one of our workshops for Compliant Modeler that goes through a lot of the basics in case you're interested in learning more about Compliant Modeler and aren't familiar with some of its primary processes. All right, I'll just give everyone 10 more seconds. All right, fantastic. Appreciate that very much. And thank you, Maria, that was fantastic. All right, at this time, we'll be passing it over to Priya. Priya, can you say hello?
Yeah, hi.
Are you all right with using your webcam?
Yes, I can share my screen real quick.
Okay, I can see your screen.
Yeah. All right.
Your
So
desktop is freaking me out a little bit.
Do you see my PowerPoint?
Yeah, are you able to do a clean share? So if you go to the sharing option under the screen, there's a clean screen share.
Right.
Perfect, thank you.
All
All right, looks good.
All right.
All yours,
Good
Priya.
morning. All right. Good morning, everyone. So today, my first topic for today is about the Team Center reports and result saving. To start with, this specific enhancement is available only in NX Team Center configuration, where we have enhanced the software where we can save our analysis and the report files generated directly from 3DCS into the Teamcenter environment. So when I say the analysis file, it includes the Monte Carlo and the sensitivity analysis. And for the reports, we have Word, Excel, and PowerPoint reports. So when these files are generated by either by running analysis or by generating report within the 3DCS software, it gets directly saved within the Teamcenter environment right under the item revision. So just to give you an overview of how the data flow works. So first thing, when you launch an assembly from Teamcenter and you open it, start working with 3DCS, the first thing you have to make sure is the top assembly need to have the read-write access permission for the 3DCS data to be successfully saved within the Teamcenter. And in traditional way, when you are working with the models that's launched from Teamcenter, when you run the analysis reports or analysis results or the reports, these information would get saved locally to your machine that is specified under the default file path that's given in the preference dialog. But now with this enhancement, when you run the results, like when you run the analysis, the HST-HLM file that is from the Monte Carlo and also the sensitivity, it gets directly saved to the Teamcenter. And similarly, when you run the reports, which includes the PowerPoint, Word, and the Excel files that's generated from the report generation dialog, it gets directly saved into Teamcenter. So with these reports now in Teamcenter, you can directly launch it and view it through its respective Office files. And when it comes to the HST-HLM file, as long as it's saved directly under the item revision, when the model is launched, these information can also be directly retrieved from Teamcenter and viewed within the 3DCS background. So with that, it's giving an added advantage to our 3DCS viewer configuration. So if you're aware of our 3DCS viewer package, we don't have the run analysis capability. But with this enhancement now, when a user tries to extract or launch a model from Teamcenter to view it under the viewer configuration, the HST-HLM files can also be now directly retrieved and view it, and the user can review and understand the model. So with that said, the first thing is the setup. So when you need the Teamcenter or when you need the 3DCS integration to work in this way, you have to configure it in a specific way within your system environment variable for this whole setup to work. So when that's set, the 3DCS software will know where the information needs to be saved. So when the system variable is not defined, it's going to perform the default way where these informations are usually saved to the local machine in your default specified location. So at this point, I just wanted to switch to the software so we can quickly go over the process. So I have Teamcenter here. I'm looking at the our headlamp tutorial model lesson number 8. I have launched it in NX. So first thing, let me quickly nominal build and run the analysis. So now you can notice the run analysis dialog where we don't show the file path anymore when your saving setup is set up in a way that it has to be done to the Teamcenter. All you can see only the file names. So now at this point, if I come back to Teamcenter, I don't have any analysis or reports file within the model. It's pretty empty. So now if I come back here, I start the analysis. So once the analysis is done, it pop-ups the analysis summary window. At this point, let me quickly switch to the Teamcenter. I do a quick refresh. I can see the HST and HLM file now getting accumulated under the item revision of the model. So now if I come back here, so now if I close and rerun this analysis, so say this time, like if I'm going to start, it's going to prompt me saying like these files are already existing in the location. Do you want to overwrite it? If I say no, I give a specific, a different name, a unique name to my files and rerun it. It's going to run the analysis again. At this point, if I come back here, do a quick refresh. So I can now see the new item or the new HST-HLM file that got ran from the software getting saved directly to the Team Center. So in this way, the user can either override their existing files or make copies by changing or giving unique names in the file location. So now if I come back here and close this, and this is again showing the advantage of viewers configuration as well. So now if I open the new analysis window, from here, I can also retrieve the information that I just saved to Team Center. So to do that, if I come into File, I say Load HST. So this pop-ups a small dialog where it tells me, like, it lists out the available number of HST files under the specific model. So from here, the user can pick whichever file they want. They can load it. Similarly, if I do the same thing for the HLM file, I try pick the file from the server, and that gets populated in the screen. And now the user can have go over the results and understand this. So in this way, the HST-HLM file is two ways where you can send this information to Team Center, save it there, and retrieve back and view it within the software. So that's about the results. Now coming to the reports. So now if you open the report generation dialog, same thing. The first thing you will notice the file name. There's no file path specified. It's just the file name that the user can give. And as I mentioned earlier, it's available for Excel, PowerPoint, and document and Word document. So I'm going to click the Excel. I'm going to hit generate. So it's going to do the basic step how by creating the content, making the sheets, and taking the pictures. You will be seeing all the same process that you usually do when you generally generate the report. So by the end, now if I come back to Team Center here, I do a refresh. So now you can see the Excel report getting added to the list. So now from here, by double clicking your Excel, it can directly launch from Team Center and view this. So now with this enhancement, this user don't need to have the information saved local in a machine and try to zip it and put it in the Team Center. But now where we can directly save this information from the software to Team Center is just the one step. We are just one step ahead, and these information now can be directly accessed by anyone who's having the right permission for those files. So that's about the reports and the analysis files saving into Team Center. And as I mentioned earlier, this enhancement is done only in NX for now. And we would like to get some feedback from the user. How would this benefit in the R workflow or the data flow process? So for that, I'm just going to hand over back to Ben for a quick poll on this topic.
Thank you, Priya. As Priya mentioned, we're just looking for your input. We'll just give it a minute so that everyone has a chance to provide their feedback. Then I'll share the results and we'll continue on. All right, thank you so much. Let me share the results. We appreciate your feedback very much. All right, back to you, Priya.
All right. So next, I'm going to continue with a few of the miscellaneous settings that we did within the software. For that, I'm using CATIA V5 for the demo. The first topic I'm going to start with is our auto refinement on-off setting. So this is another highly requested options from the user. To just start with, let me just go over what the setting does, and also I'll talk about the new enhancement that we did for this setting. So if you come under the preference, under the model setting, we have this option called auto refinement orientation percent and auto refine form percent. So these were the two initial settings that we added to the software. So what it does, basically, it's going to automatically add the orientation and form refinement to the existing location GD&T. So to quickly show the setting in the dialog, so if I come in here, create a new GD&T, start by I'm adding a location GD&T. And if you come to the options section of the dialog, you will see the auto refinement option turned on. So this is how it was set up initially, where this option was always on for all the GD&T that the user create. And when it's on, it's going to look for this preference option. The percentage of orientation would be defaulted to 25 and the percentage for form is defaulted to 0. So these would be the level of orientation or form refinement that will be applied to that specific location GD&T the user will create. And so what we have enhanced now is we added another option that says auto refine default on, and it's a checkbox. So by doing this, the user can now set your model in a way whether they want this refinement to be on or off before even they start the modeling process. So when I now deactivate this and say, okay, come back to the GD&T dialog, I start. Now, if I go into the options, you can see the auto refinement turned off. So now by adding this setting, we are not forcing the user to add the refinement always, but now it's up to the user depending on how they want the model to set up. They can have it active or deactive, and that will affect when the users start creating their GD&T. So this setting will be helpful for the if a user is trying to create a new model by adding new GD&T. But at the same time, if you have an existing model where you have all these refinements active or deactive, and if they were looking for a way to control that, we added a setting in our MTM on-off function. So when you click that, say go into a part, so now under the entity type, if you hit the drop down, we have the option for GD&T auto refinement. So when a user pick on a part, they can see the list of GD&T that have these refinements turned on. So depending on the user's input, you can actually activate, deactivate, toggle the GD&Ts, and depending on that, the settings would behave within that GD&T dialog. And also the same setting is also available in your MTM global setting, where if you can see this option in the bottom where it says GD&T auto refinement. By using this, the user can control the overall active and inactive status of all the GD&T refinements in the model at once. So this way they can benefit that how they wanted to control the refinements in their existing completed model as well. So these are the two settings that it was included in the new version, from which the user can make use of how they want the auto refinement to control their model. So that's about the auto refinement. And I think we have a poll at this point to understand how do you like this auto refinement and how do we want this auto refinement to be defaulted in your in the software. So I'm going to hand over to Ben again for a quick poll on this.
Thank you, Maria. This one's pretty simple. Just let us know. Give it a few seconds. Okay, thank you. Just a few more seconds. All right, I'll share the results. All right, appreciate it very much. Thank you, everybody, for providing your feedback. Okay, Maria, all set.
All right. So the next topic is about the non-feature of size setting that we added to our features dialog. So what this setting basically does, it helps the user to control the feature, whether the feature has to be treated as a cylinder or not. So with just a button of click. So let me get back into the software here. So now if I open the features dialog by double clicking the features from the tree, so basically this dialog will list out all the features in your part, and it tells the type, whether it's a cylinder or a plane. And there's also additional settings to this where it controls the density, the caudal, then also the threshold of the surfaces. So initially, like the way it was before, where the user have to control a cylindrical surface, because sometimes in the model they'll have curved surfaces where by default the software treated it as cylinder, but there could be use cases where the user need that cylinders to be treated as planes. So in those, and also vice versa. So in that situation, we were using the cylindrical threshold number where the user tried to put in a number, they have to change accordingly. By default, for a cylinder to be treated as, to give a whole size information, it has to be it has to be set to 95 degrees. But if the user have to change it to a plane, they have to go for a higher number. Similarly, the vice versa, when there is a plane and they have to be treated as a cylinder, they have to change this number. And it was kind of confusing for the user to what number they have to really key in. Should be a smaller number that's less than 95 or a bigger number. So that's why we had requests that can this be streamlined in a better way so that the user don't have to worry about what number to put in, but just a more simpler way to change their features for what they're looking for. So that's why we came up with this new column right here. You can see that says non-feature of size with check boxes next to each feature. So from here, the user can pick, say, for example, I have a cylindrical feature here, and I wanted to make this as a non-cylindrical feature. So I can go ahead and do this checkbox. So that will instantly warn the user that this geometry is going to change. So by doing OK here, now I can see that size information for that surface got removed, and also it got instantly updated in the tree for me. So this feature is now no more a cylindrical feature, and it doesn't have the size information in it. And again, now this can be done the other way also. So now if I do uncheck that, it's going to again put it back to the cylindrical, put back the cylindrical information on that surface for me. So in this way, the user can instantly toggle this button by which they can control how they want the surface to be treated, either with the size information or not. So that's another highly requested setting that we added to the software, which helps the user to quickly fix their model and save time and just continue with the process. So that's about the new non-feature of size setting. So the next topic I have here, if I go back to the PowerPoint, it's in the capability tolerance dialog. So now within the capability tolerance, we added a new setting that says use sigma range. So what it does when it's trying to calculate the sensitivity for the data, it's going to use the sigma value instead of traditionally how it was using the min-max range. So it's going to look for the sigma range to calculate the sensitivity results. So we figured it out that this was the most accurate results compared to the min-max range, because sometimes the min-max range maybe gives you a smaller results compared to the Six Sigma based on the size of the sample. So to show that quickly in the software, let me come back here. So if I have a capability tolerance defined, this is a very simple example where I have a point and I have loaded the data. The sample is from the XYZ and also from the associated direction of that point. I have around 25 samples created. So with that and With that added, now I'm going to have this new setting that says use sigma range turned on. And now if I go ahead and run the analysis, let me turn on the geofactor results as well. So now you can see the sensitivity or the Six Sigma sensitivity closer to the Six Sigma range of the Monte Carlo analysis. But whereas the other way, if would have run with the traditional way, with turning on the without that option turned on, it's going to match with the estimated min-max range value for the sensitivity calculation. So now with that setting turned on, it's going to use the Six Sigma value and calculate it based on that. So now you can see the difference in the sensitivity when it ran with the setting on. So that's about the capability tolerance enhancement. And I think I have a quick poll on this topic as well. So I'm going to hand over to Ben.
Thank you, Priya. It's our last poll for today. If we just get a few more people to provide their opinion, we got about 10 more seconds. Thank you. All right, I'll share the results. Okay, thank you very much. Priya?
All right, I think that, yeah, that's the end of the session. Yep.
Fantastic, great. So we're at almost 50 minutes past the hour. We have time for some Q&A. Dave, do you want to unmute and join us?
Absolutely.
Hey, Dave.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to need the help with Priya and Maria on this one. We got one question, and maybe we got some more coming through. We'll see how they come through. But we're talking about the auto refinement. And the question is, can you apply different values of auto refinement orientation percent for different features independently?
Okay, that's a great question. But right now, the way it is set up is the preference is the place where you globally control the refinement. User can manually do the refinement on their GD&T individually with no issues. But if they have to do it with the auto refinement setting, it has to be done globally. So the preference is the place where you set the refinement value, and that would be applied for all the GD&T that's getting created.
I got you. So if they want to do it individually, just create a orientation and form call out
Right.
in using the GD&T. Okay. All right, good. Well, honestly, I think you guys really covered these topics well. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, these are very detailed questions, and we don't have any other questions from the crew. So Ben, I think we can wrap this one up.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. I do want to remind you that tomorrow we'll be sending out the recording and an email to everybody. If you don't receive that email, please reach out to DCS so that you can get it. It usually comes out about 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in that email will be a link to download the recorded video, to watch it on demand. And I'll also be including links to all of our previous sessions this year, as well as a previous session of Compliant Modeler that goes through the basics and functions of Compliant Modeler. If you have any additional questions that come up between now and then, you can respond to that email and I will get your questions over to the team. Thank you to our two presenters today, Maria and Priya. You guys were fantastic. I appreciate your time. And thank you, Dave, for joining us for the Q&A and for helping us out with the different questions. At this time, I'll be closing the webinar down, and we hope to see you next year for our 2026 webinar series. Thank you, everybody.